Hi, Dr. Jayne here. I'm including this as prep to the appointment we'll have, taking your homeopathic case. And it's just a brief description of what I do when you come and why. I was influenced by Bruce Lipton when I was in my early 20s, the biology of belief. And I understood from that time forward just how much our mental state affected our physical well-being, and eventually that if we were in a stress state, that it would cause disease later in life. So I became a naturopathic doctor, and at that time I found out about homeopathy, which I loved because homeopathy is one of the few medicines that takes the mind symptoms into consideration as much as the physical. And when you look at all of that, mind and physical symptoms, you come up with one remedy that helps the individual. So I became a homeopath and pursued that. And in that time, I found Dr. Divya Chambra from India. 10 years ago, she was developing a method that included or got to the state in the unconscious mind in a very precise way that you could see a circuit, and when given a remedy, break the circuit that would allow the individual to no longer be controlled in many ways by that. And the importance of that is that many of us get triggered by things that happen every day and we have no clue why. And we're suddenly in a stress state, in a fight or flight state, or a sad state, and it really affects us for a period of time and can eventually affect our physical body. So I've studied with Divya for 10 years, and this is just a short video explaining the process and why it's so important. So the subconscious brain, or the subconscious mind, is 95% of our brain. And it's programmed from the time we are 0, or when we're first born, to the age of 7. And if you think about it, that's when we learn so much of what we're going to bring forward into our, lives. And we learn to recognize things just by a tiny smell. Like, that there is a pine tree if you smell the smell of the needles. Or if you see just the snout of a dog, you know what the whole dog looks like. And that has happened, in early childhood when we've touched a dog, smelled a dog, heard the bark of a dog. And so we develop these circuits that allow us to thrive later in life and recognize and do things without thinking about it. Think about how you drive a car without even thinking about, putting the gear in. You just do it so automatically that it becomes part of your life. But if there's a circuit that develops at that time, under a very stressed or emotional situation, we then carry that circuit forward into our adult lives and can get triggered by it very easily. And the thing to know as well is that in the same part of the brain, we have an ability to control everything that happens in our body automatically. So it's called also the automatic brain or mind. And that part of our mind allows us to function without thinking about what's going on in our body. So our blood pressure is affected by it, our hormones, the way when our heart beats, the way a wound is healed, and so many more things that happen automatically without us even thinking about it. Our digestion, our hair growth. If we think about it, it's thousands of processes that are going on every second of the day, and we don't even think about it. So the two are connected. The unconscious, which has all these programs and circuits and the automatic mind. So just to explain how important that is, imagine that you grew up next to a train station and you ate at a certain time at 9 a.m., 12, 3, 6. And this happened to be the same time that a bell rang at the school. So much like the famous Pavlovian experiment, we would hear the bell and eat at the same time. And so all these automatic processes would start to happen as soon as we heard the bell. You know, we would salivate and all the enzymes and the acids would start to work. And that wasn't a problem as long as we lived by the school and we were eating at those times. But imagine that we went and worked at a train station later in life and the bell was going off every 10 minutes. And so we'd have the same circuit, the same trigger that caused the same reaction in our body, but it was happening every 10 minutes. And then what would happen? We might get a peptic ulcer or an eating disorder, and we wouldn't have a clue why that, you know, these things were happening. And so these programs are part of being human and they happen to all of us. And the good programs are fine, they help us function, but when they're emotionally triggered or there's something that causes stress for no reason, that can become a problem later in life. So imagine a child that was bullied several times at school, and he can remember, you know, the person that was bullying him and exactly what they looked like. And later in life, when he saw someone that looked like that, he could say, oh, that's why I'm triggered, because it looks exactly the same. And it brings back a whole flood of information and memories. But what he doesn't realize, and this is another really important part of the case taking, is that the whole background, the whole room is also recorded, every tiny little bit of information. So if there was a pencil laying on the floor, you know, a meter away, and he doesn't consciously remember it, later in life, if he's going to write an exam and there's a pencil that looks just like that, he goes into this stress state and can't think and is angry and upset, and it, you know, ruins his whole exam, but he has no clue why he's been triggered, or it could happen just walking down the street. So in the case taking, we look at, you know, different scenes in your life, but not just the scene, the part of the scene that seems important, also the background. And there's a very precise way that we follow the scenes that seem to be important, because there's many and they, you know, they could all overlap, but it's the scenes that are connected to the stress and the physical symptom that's happening now that we need to follow. And we do that by using the 5 senses to remember that the unconscious brain reacts much faster than the conscious brain, because it's fight or flight, and because it's been programmed over thousands of years so that we react very quickly. So it's important not to think too much, and whatever comes up, just to say it and not to override it with your conscious brain, and not to worry if something seems, you know, strange or peculiar. That can be the point, but there's a very precise way of following these circuits, so you don't have to worry if the information is correct or not. And using the conscious mind to sort out what you feel is correct or not correct it's important to put that aside, is what I'm saying. So to describe it with the 5 senses, to describe what comes first, and not to edit it, just and allow it to come, and like in flashbacks, like in pictures, and often the 5 senses will trigger a scene, and that's how we get to the circuit that is causing the problem, that is constantly being triggered and is causing the physical ailment that's happening now, or the mental, emotional trigger. And the goal is to find a remedy that breaks that circuit, so that over time, if you use the remedy, eventually the circuit is broken, and then the connection or the reason for the physical ailment also heals. So that's the method in a nutshell. And I'm sure that I can describe more when you come. But if you could listen to that, 2 or 3 times, it sure does help and makes everything easier and quicker and a lot more fun.